From the imperial palaces of ancient China to the treasure-filled caves of European folklore, there's one mythical creature that you find pretty much everywhere: the dragon. But here's the thing, that one name hides a massive divide. We all think we know what a dragon is, but today we're going to see how this single myth actually tells two completely different stories that split the world right in two.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a quick question. When I say the word dragon, what's the very first image that pops into your head? Seriously, is it a terrifying, scaly beast breathing fire? Or is it something else? Maybe a wise, powerful ally? Well, your answer probably says a lot about which side of the world your favorite stories come from.
And this is the split, right here. In the East, you have the Long, a celestial creature that brings rain, luck, and life. But in the West, the dragon is a symbol of chaos, a greedy, fire-breathing monster whose main job in the story is to get killed. It's the same creature, but with two totally opposite job descriptions.
So let's start our journey in the East with the incredible Long. And the first thing you have to do is forget all about those greedy, cave-dwelling monsters. That's not what's happening here. The Eastern dragon is a divine being, tied to the very idea of power, good fortune, and the natural world itself.
The biggest difference really comes down to what they breathe. The Long doesn't breathe destructive fire. It breathes clouds, life-giving clouds. So this isn't some enemy you have to defeat. It's a god you revere. And think about it. If you're in a society that depends on farming, controlling the weather isn't just a neat trick. It's everything. And the Long was the master of that.
And honestly, the dragon's body tells its own story. It's like a divine mixtape, a combination of the best parts of 9 different animals. You get the horns of a stag, the scales of a carp, the claws of an eagle. This wasn't just some random mashup. Each piece was symbolic, representing the combined power of the entire animal kingdom in one sacred creature.
This connection to power became very, very real. The Long was the personal symbol of the Emperor of China. He literally ruled from the dragon throne. And here's a wild detail. You could actually tell who was in charge just by looking at a dragon's feet. The Emperor's dragon had 5 claws, and that was a number no one else was allowed to use. It was a visual reminder of who had the ultimate authority.
And for everyday people, this wasn't just some abstract idea. The Long was a part of the rhythm of life. As a weather god, it was crucial for bringing the rain you needed for a good harvest. People built temples for them, made offerings. They were seen as protectors against disasters like floods, and are still a huge part of massive celebrations like the Chinese New Year. All right, now let's hop over to the West, where the dragon story, well, it takes a much darker turn. Over here, you don't build temples to dragons, you grab your sword and go hunt them in their lairs. The dragon isn't a god, it's the ultimate monster. It's basically a walking, flying symbol of evil that's just waiting to be conquered.
The Western dragon is pretty much a checklist of our primal fears. You've got greed, right? That's the huge pile of gold it's always sitting on. You've got destruction in its fiery breath. The dragon isn't a character, it's a test. It's the final exam for any hero, from St. George all the way back to Beowulf.
And for centuries, that was the deal. Dragon equals bad guy. But then, right at the end of the 1800s, something really fascinating started to happen. The monster started to get a personality. And we can actually trace this huge change back to one charming little story from 1898 called The Reluctant Dragon. It basically created the blueprint for every friendly dragon we've seen since.
The author, Kenneth Grahame, just threw the monster rulebook out the window. His dragon wasn't a terrifying beast. He was a smart, well-spoken guy who would much rather write a sonnet than burn down a village. So when a little boy finds his cave, he doesn't find an enemy, he finds a friend. And in a world full of dragon slayers, the whole idea of a dragon befriender was absolutely wild.
So when the terrified townspeople call in the famous St. George to slay the dragon, the boy comes up with this genius plan. He introduces the hero to the dragon, and they all agree that a real fight is just silly. So they fake it. They put on a big show, St. George gives the dragon a harmless little poke with his lance, the dragon roars and thrashes, and the whole town cheers. The reformed dragon is welcomed into the community, and everyone's happy.
And that one little story planted a seed that completely changed how the West saw dragons. It started this incredible journey, from mortal enemy to best friend.
So first, you had the original model, the dragon as the ultimate challenge.
Think of it like the final boss in a video game. Its job was simple: be terrifying and get slain by the hero.
But then, the reluctant dragon comes along and flips the whole thing on its head. All of a sudden, the dragon isn't a monster, it's just a misunderstood neighbor. It has thoughts, it has feelings, and the goal isn't to kill it anymore, it's to try and understand it.
Which brings us to today, where that evolution is pretty much complete. The dragon has gone from being the thing a hero fights against to being the friend a hero fights with. It's not something to be conquered, it's a partner you soar with.
And you see this perfectly in movies like How to Train Your Dragon. The main conflict in that story isn't about a hero versus a monster. It's about getting past old prejudices to find a new way of understanding. Hiccup and Toothless aren't master and pet, they're equals, they're best friends. The story has done a complete 180 from the old myths.
So, what does this all tell us? The story of the dragon shows how one single myth can be used for two totally different reasons by different cultures. It's one creature that has taken two completely separate paths through our history.
So here's the bottom line. In the East, the drawing has been this stable, positive symbol of harmony and power for thousands of years. It's a rock. But in the West, the dragon has been more like a mirror. It started out reflecting our worst fears of the monstrous other, but over time it's evolved to reflect our growing capacity for empathy, our desire to understand things we don't know, rather than just destroy them.
In the end, our myths aren't just fantasy stories. They're reflections of us, our values, our fears, and our hopes. The long journey of the dragon proves that, and it leaves us with one last thing to think about. What do you think the dragons of our future are going to look like?